Welcome to the TTS Talking Educators podcast. Each week, we'll be joined by educational experts from across the globe, offering exclusive insights, inspiration, and guidance to help practitioners unlock the potential for learning in educational settings. Hello, my name is Mark Loveday, your host for this week's TTS Talking Early Years podcast. I'm the headmaster of Fruin College, an independent co-educational day and boarding school for students aged 7 to 19, specialising in dyslexia and co-occurring specific learning difficulties. I'm a specialist teacher and SLE, Specialist Leader Education for SEND, and I've taught across primary, secondary and sixth form in both mainstream and specialist settings, holding a variety of leadership roles. I've previously set up and led SEND advisory teaching services, been responsible for the creation of diagnostic pathways for dyslexia, dyscalculia and dyspraxia, and created and led an alternative provision for students experiencing emotional-based school avoidance, which went on to win Alternative Provision of the Year in 2023. I'm a board director for the SPLD Assessment Standards Committee, SASC, and trustee of a multi-academy trust, and a national and international speaker. Throughout this series, we'll be discussing a range of topics aimed at supporting SEN in primary settings, inspiring you with guidance and resources to enhance your practice. I'm delighted to welcome back Arran Smith as today's guest. Welcome, Arran. How are you?
I'm very well, Mark. I'm doing very well.
Good. Nice to see you again.
Yes.
Before we get started, do you want to just give us a quick introduction about yourself for our listeners?
So I'm Arran Smith. I'm a severely dyslexic adult that is a dyslexia and education consultant. I've spent the last 20 years working in education. I previously worked for the British Dyslexia Association, and for the last 8 years, I've been the CEO and founder of the SEN Group, delivers CPD and awareness for those in special needs, and the founder of the Neurodiversity Show that we will plug once more on our podcast on the 9th and 10th of May at the NEC in Birmingham, and it's free entry for education.
And well worth a visit. We're really looking forward to having a stand and joining you there as well.
Yeah.
It's well worth a visit. Lots of things to get from it. So thank you for that. In this episode, we'll be talking about supporting children with specific learning difficulties in the digital age, as well as online resources that can help parents and teachers. We'll also be discussing the role of assistive technology, such as apps and software, hardware, and tools. I mean, Arran, this is an absolutely massive area, isn't it?
Oh,
I know it's an area of absolute passion and interest for you.
For me, yeah. So technology for me has changed my life, and I'm gonna kind of we will start off with going right. We know our education system very well, like you've said of how many things you've been done, and we've worked with each other so much. We're going to use the quote first, that we still have a 21st century intake of students for a 19th century education system, which was done by Lorraine Peterson.
Absolutely.
And that,
I'm going to jump in there, though, because I'm going to say the one difference, and I do like to make a little quick there, because I actually completely, I mean, we both know Lorraine very well, and completely agree with that, apart from the chalkboard has become an LCD board, so that's quite cool.
And that's it. And I think actually the difference is also now is that we've got to kind of take this concept. So because for me, I'm massively passionate about technology. I am a severely dyslexic adult. I'm 41 years old, near enough. I still have a reading age of a 9-year-old, a spelling age of an 8-year-old. I still do not read automatically. But without technology, I cannot do what I do. Without dictation tools, without reading aloud tools, so without assistive technology, I can't do it. And without tools like my mobile phone, which we could go on a debate about mobile phone policy as well, because I have a lot to say around that in my own kind of concepts of ideas. But I think that for me is accessible, and I think that's where education is. And I think that it's kind of, to me, you've added that kind of extra to that quote about the LCD and about that digital display. But actually, if we go back a few years, we look at that time over COVID, when actually where actually a percentage of schools, we won't say all schools, a percentage of schools were delivering access to education online. The government provided access to technology to some children. Why have we reverted back?
Really good question.
That what I don't understand is that why have we not gone, actually, no, this has worked. Yes, okay, we can't test, we can't do this, and we discussed this in the last podcast, that we have this education is all about testing and all about this data concept. And actually, you know what? Let's talk about changing children's lives, and that's where technology can really do that.
And I think I completely agree with you. And I'm equally sharing your passion on that one. I think it's, for me, I think it's also about understanding and unlocking what we mean by that assistive technology. And I've worked with students over the years where in many schools, a laptop is given, for example, and actually that becomes a physical barrier at times for that student. It's that whole. Indeed, you go into a more specialized setting, the first thing they want to do is actually they want to write, because actually, in their view, they want to be normal, inverted commas, and that's their words coming through. Because actually, that's what it means. You're given the laptop. No one actually teaches you actually what inclusive software is available on the laptop. How do I save my work? Where do you want me to print it to? Where are the printers? Is the thing networked?
Yeah, and I'll give you some personal concepts on that. So I have always liked technology. My kind of first time of technology is from Encarta 95, like ASDA for school voucher territory. That's what that thing. That's what I remember. But I got given a laptop in year 9, right? Black and white Toshiba laptop. Best thing on it was Toshiba used to have a screensaver that was a shooting game. Best thing ever, right? You used to be able to use the arrow keys and shoot asteroids. I was never taught to do one simple thing: how to save something and how to open something. So I wrote a piece of work, I saved it, and then I opened it by saving it again. So I saved over it, right? And I will never forget that day when I found that out. I'll never forget what it was in. I was in year 9. I was sitting in. I was on the top, in the top of upstairs in the computer room at my high school, right? And the teacher that I really got on really well with. I'm still friends with him today. Mr. Knight, who was my IT teacher. He always supported me, let me tinker with computers and play and literally build computers and stuff like that when I was at school. And he said, no, you need to open, not save. And I went, I've been given this laptop for nearly a year and no one's ever told me that. Or at least it was about a month I'd had it and no one ever told me that. And that's it. And I think the other thing then is the one thing I always say is copy and paste. Best assistive tool you can ever have.
And the ability to drag copy.
Oh, that's the thing, yeah.
Revolutionary thing, really. The cut and then go.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, I think that's the thing. But I think what kind of me, and I'm going to lead on this because I wanted to say this. I have a thing around technology. I have this thing that I know that writing is a skill, and writing is something we have to teach in schools. But why don't we teach typing?
Yeah.
I know, but why not? What is it? What is it that actually a thing? And I mentioned this on the podcast last time about the government's change the support for SEND governors, and there's an aspect in there about adulthood, about teaching children for adulthood. Yeah. It's like, well, actually, if we don't teach typing, and I know touch typing is not for everyone. I totally get that, but actually, even if we tried it, even if we used a product that support with reading and writing, or we used a product that's designed for typing, actually for me, that would be so much more beneficial. It's a multi-sensory skill. And that to me is like, actually, that's the fundamental concept of technology. Right? Technology is amazing. The technology concept of being able to interact with each other, being able to actually show things in an interactive way. And then going into that productivity tools like assistive technology. But actually, for me, if we can get every child to type, or every child to start to know that actually we don't type like this, or we don't type with one fingers, we don't type with our thumbs, right? We can type, and actually that means then we break down a barrier that people won't face. And even like I've had the argument before. Well, okay, what if they're a mechanic? They're not going to type. I went, well, sorry. The guy that does my MOT has to type on a computer.
Completely.
Right? He only has to type a few words, but he still has to type. And of course, the mechanic he uses he uses one finger typing. So it's not that he doesn't know how to use a keyboard.
No,
right?
I think you're also thinking about things like that, just even applying for the jobs.
That's right.
It's a skill for life. And when we're talking about a big push, especially our children with EHCPs, we're talking about PFA, that preparation for adulthood.
Yeah.
How often do we see that?
Yeah.
We talk about independent skills, but actually, if we break that down, what does that look like? I mean, just building on that, I think, because parents may be listening to this podcast as well. Things that are free, free touch up like BBC Dance Mat is a really good starting point.
And Dance Mat is we'll talk about Dance Mat, because Dance Mat to me is brilliant. Now, what I didn't realise, Dance Mat was actually created by the makers of English Type. So English Type is the next level up. So you do Dance Mat, but it's £30 a year, right, for a parent, or it's £35 a year for a school to pay for a child, right, for a whole year. And that to me is like, you know what, we can say that there's no money in education. There's money in education. The downside is head teachers and governors and business managers just have to go, we have to spend it in this way. And unfortunately, sometimes we have to make that decision that we have to repair a roof before we can actually give them typing. And I get that. I understand that concept. I do. You said something earlier, Mark, that I want to just pick up on. You kind of talked about the concept of around giving a laptop and how it could be a barrier.
Completely.
Right. But I'm going to try and talk about and show how actually it can be. So it can't be. So I had this story. This was I'm going to say this is about 5 or 6 years ago when I was at the BET show.
Yeah.
And I was able to go to this kind of round table discussion about technology. So iPads were kind of just coming into schools at the time. And this gentleman talked about a school for children with it was a mainstream school, actually. I was talking about a mainstream school, and there was a girl that had a statement at that time and had a near enough full-time teaching assistant. The girl had Down syndrome. That was the concept. Now, she had no peer support. She had no real friendship groups, and she had no real social skills. She had this human that was attached to her. They made a decision, a controversial decision at the time, to give her an iPad. Within 3 weeks, she had peer support. She had a friendship group, and she broke down a barrier, because that concept of technology that's a bit different, concept of technology that was coming in, people could see it, people were interested, she could communicate, and she removed a barrier. So when I think technology can be a barrier, if you are not taught, and that's where whenever I do training around technology, the first thing I always say is, it doesn't work for everyone, but we've got to put training in. But it's the same with everything. It's like you would know, right? You've recently become a head teacher. I bet you've got in a cupboard, you found loads of resource that hasn't been used for 20 years, right? Because of course, teachers have moved on, people don't know about stuff, and that is where institutional knowledge is really important, but actually doing that. And that's where I actually think that technology can be really powerful for an individual.
Completely. I think you're absolutely right. I think technology is only a barrier if we don't know how to use it effectively. And I think
Correct.
That's the key bit. I mean, going back to the teaching assistant, we know all the evidence, the DIS report, etc., that's out there in terms of those students make less progress with that one-to-one teaching assistant. And I think we need to take that seriously, because you think in schools, yes, you get proof or whatever it might be in terms of maintenance, but the kind of the biggest expense beyond this kind of those capital expense is staffing.
Staffing is huge.
Massive. And we need to be thinking about how can we use the funding more effectively to get better outcomes for our students. And when we talk about assistive technology, we're not just talking about things like laptops, iPads. Simple things like the use of talk tins, etc., to offload working memory.
And that's the simple fact. And it's actually just researching technology a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, how can we use technology for multiple things? That's the thing. That's it. How can we use it as a multiple thing? So can we look at a reading pen that has multiple usage? Can we look at, have we decided, okay, IT have decided to buy a load of iPads to be shared. Actually, how can we use that? I'm going to give you one thing around assistive technology. So I was able to go to a school in Witness only last year, actually. So they'd heard a talk that I'd done about Microsoft. Now, Microsoft has lots of free technology for assist technology, so dictation, read aloud, and all of that, learning tools, and an immersive reader. Brilliant set of tools, right? Now, the downside to schools is that we often have to buy things on price. So when we buy a laptop, if we don't buy one of these that I'm wearing a headset, unfortunately, we're dealing with one microphone. Most laptops have one microphone in, right? The difference between a laptop and an iPad is actually a consumer product. So it's a consumer product, so it has consumer grade technology, which actually means it has 2 microphones in it, which means it has a microphone array. So this child was sat outside his classroom, year five lad, been asked to write something about some sentences, I think about Vikings, if I remember correctly. In the 20 minutes he'd been there, he'd done 2 sentences on his laptop. Now, I'm a person that tries to get on with most kids. Now, and I've had some children that don't like me, which is perfectly fine, but I'm normally pretty good at it. I swapped it out from a laptop to an iPad because actually he had a slight speech impediment in the sense that he was just very slow at certain letters, which kind of wasn't helping the situation. And and you could see he was so frustrated because he wanted to do stuff. Gave him the iPad, used the dictation, the Microsoft dictation in the iPad, not the iOS dictation. So the Microsoft button in Word. 15 minutes later, 1.5 paragraphs. Right? So excited, right? Came and showed me, and there's the teaching assistant and the head teacher actually was with me. She was showing me around. A, couldn't believe it. B, I then asked him to do some more, and he went and did it. Now, that is because, of course, I'm a new person, I'm a different person. People react differently. But actually, he was removed the barrier. And that is where technology comes in. And I think that is the thing. The thing, what it is like, it is, what have you got? If we've got Microsoft, there's brilliant technology. If we've got Google, there's brilliant technology, right? I think there is a fundamental concept around people put barriers in front of things. And I think that's just not, it's not, there's no barrier now. It's like the concept of the thing that I used to hear a lot when I used to go and do these talks around technology. Oh, but we have to have everyone logging in. But that's a human skill. Everyone's got to log in, right? But actually, there are tools out there that means we can just scan a QR code and it logs us in, right? For it, right? But then we look at Wales. Every child from year 2 has an email address, and they have that email address all the way until they leave school at 19. And they have access to technology. There is still this fundamental concept around training. There's this fundamental concept about digital native, the concept of digital natives in our society. And then there is still, that we talked about very briefly on our last podcast, the barrier of our education system when it comes to supporting our teachers, right? And that's it. But as me and you will have this conversation, because when I come and see you, how do we value teachers, right? Do we value a teacher by giving them a 20-year-old clunky little desktop on their desk that they know they've got to turn on, they've got to do a piece of work before it works, or go, you know what, actually, if I invest in a nice shiny tablet device that's a touchscreen, it means now I can now interact with a child by touch, use inking, and I can cast it to my, rather than cast it to my interactive whiteboard, and cast it to my TV, which means now actually I'm not spending £3,000 or £4,000 on an interactive whiteboard. I'm paying less than that on a TV. I've got a touch device. I can still do all my drawings, all my writing that I would do on the board, but I can also now interact with a child. And this is the thing. So when I will name the school. So if anyone gets a chance, contact the Unicorn School in Oxfordshire. They have revolutionised that concept. They have gone from to actually having every child one-to-one with a device, teachers with a touch device. They're using inking, and they are casting to TVs, and they are using that technology to support their dyslexic learners. And that is what it's about, in my opinion. That's where I used to say this thing, putting technology at the heart of learning with accessibility tools built in for everyone creates independent learners and ensure all students achieve their full potential. And that is what it's all about.
It completely is. And I think, if we take a look at what most schools have got embedded in their systems in terms of Microsoft, now we've got the symbols going across to Microsoft, which used to be in the realms of people like Widget.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Widget is still like, wow. But, Microsoft to start getting that building in, we've got things like, we've got those colorful semantics now being able to show and track, syllables and simplification in Microsoft. We've got the ability to chunk things down, have it read backwards. But the great thing is, and I think the selling point I will say to teachers is, once we've set it up with a pupil login, it will remain as needed for every time that pupil.
And that's it. And don't get me wrong, there is technology out there that is needed for children. So things like widget, things like Everway, things like Readable, all these technologies that are companies and products that are there. It's not going to not every piece of free technology or building technology is going to help every child.
It's not at all. No.
And also we go back to the concept. We do have an exam system, so actually we do sometimes have to. We have to make changes for that, which we could have another whole debate about again at some point. But I think actually for me, if we start off and support everyone, but more importantly, and this is for senior leaders listening to this podcast, invest in your staff. So if you're saying, okay, our vision in school is to have a one-to-one or a shared device policy. Okay, what devices are you giving to your staff? Because if you're keeping that staff member on a desktop tied to their desk, they are not being interactive with their class. They're not being multisensory. We need to have, we've not got dynamic teaching. We haven't got the resources, and that's what changes things. And I think that's where technology can be really beneficial. And also thinking about mental health and well-being for our teachers is the thing we all want to change.
And I think even if we strip it back, to kind of bring it to a close, really, even if we strip it back, it's just simple things like, talking postcards where they can all record into a tin, draw a picture. We can straight away take talking tins with a word bank and make it interactive. Because,
massively.
Word is a word list just shoved on a desk if they don't know how to read it. There's loads we can be doing low level, cost effective, just trial making this whole thing multi-sensory and accessible for students. One of the big things I'm a big fan of is the Call Scotland.
Call Scotland.
Brilliant.
It's brilliant. It's got the Call Scotland thing. Wheels are amazing because you can find that information out. There is multiple things on that, and I think that and I'm hoping at some point, like not today, we talk a little bit about AI, because that is going to be our next thing that actually does change the ability. And again, it's going to be down to education.
Absolutely. I think, thank you for that. I think, we could go on for hours because it's obviously, it's a question of both of us. I think, bringing it together, the key bit really is around that assistive technology is there to assist.
Yeah, assist and support.
How to use it, it's not going to.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that training is important, and seek out that training.
It's amazing. Thank you so very much, Arran. Brilliant. Look forward to speaking to you on the next one.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I'd like to say a huge thank you to our guest, Arran, for joining us and providing such valuable insights. You've been listening to the TTS Talking Educators podcast with me, Mark Loveday, and Arran Smith. If you've been inspired by our conversation today, don't forget you can sign up via the link in our episode notes to be the first to hear about future episodes and access exclusive follow-up content, including ideas for your settings and links to relevant resources.